there are a lot of brands, a lot of clients that look at Prime Day and like, well, if we take 20%, our margins are too rough and it's not worth it. But in almost every case, the margin hit is made up for by either the revenue increase on the day or day after, or the lasting effects that we get from both repeat purchases or keyword rankings. Amazon really does favor products that are doing well, whether that's click-through rate or conversion rate. So if that snowball starts rolling, you can really extend out those effects by pushing advertising, by any other means you might have, other levers you can pull after Prime Day to continue that momentum. And if you don't run those Prime Day promos, you don't get that momentum in the first place.
Looking for an effective way to drive traffic to your Shopify site and increase sales? Criteo's integration with Shopify helps attract buyers with relevant ads, deliver rich consumer experiences, and drive better commerce outcomes. The Criteo plus Shopify integration allows merchants to launch in a matter of clicks, meaning no development or technical skills are needed. Benefits of this integration include expanded reach, greater personalization, elevated acquisition rates for high-intent buyers, and increased retention. With Criteo, you can acquire new customers across the open web and build audiences from the world's largest commerce dataset. To get started, visit criteo.com/DTC.
It's all killer, no filler. I'm Eric, and I'm here with Clifford and Takai from the Pilot House Amazon team. We're doing a Prime Day retrospective. Clifford, high level, how was Prime Day 2023?
Prime Day was awesome. Amazon announced that it was their best sales day in history. So Amazon had a great Prime Day, and the clients that we represent also had a fantastic Prime Day.
Recession, Smurcession, as they say. Like I think Prime Days, it's in like people. I bet people were holding their breath, wondering what it would be like this year. But yeah, that they're smashing records. It just makes sense, I guess, because they're still growing their footprint every year as well. They're still growing their accounts.
Yeah, they cheat a little because they do put a giant banner up at the top of the website for about a week beforehand that says Prime Day is coming up. It's these two dates. Was it July 11th and 12th? Which really deters people from buying stuff for about a week beforehand when you have a big banner that says, hey, don't buy anything. It's all going to go on sale right on the front of the website. So it does kind of juice up the Prime Day actual numbers a little bit.
I want to get into the tactics and the things that worked best, maybe the things that didn't, but just like high level, like maybe go back and forth. Maybe Takai, we'll start with you. What was your biggest win without naming the client? What was your biggest win that you kind of had your hands on during Prime Day?
Yeah, so we took a single client up 8 times their average daily revenue on the first day of Prime Day. So huge win there. Day 2, similar pacing around 6 times. So about a third of our entire July in those 2 days. Massive Prime Day for us.
And what was the discount on that one?
That was only 20%. So we ran a 20% off the entire catalog. That's the minimum discount you have to run on any Prime Day discount like that, typically.
Get 8x revenue for 20% off. That's probably something a lot of people would take.
It was the highest profit month this brand has ever had. So
amazing. Clifford, what was yours?
I think our biggest was 4x a typical day, but the brand's already typically in the high 5 figures to 6 figures on a typical day. So that was a massive increase, beating their best ever day on the platform by a large margin. And then the second day, because Prime Day is 2 days, the second day was just behind it. So we did basically a week's worth of sales in the 2 days of Prime Day. But that brand is usually, like I said, somewhere in the 5 to 6 figure range on a typical day. So doing a week's worth of sales in 2 days is massive.
And what was their discount? Theirs was 20 as well?
Same thing. We did the 20%. As Takai said, the 20% discount is the minimum to get like the Prime Day deal badge. So when you go on site and you filter, like on the mobile app, on the website, there is a filter on Prime Day. It says like, only show me the Prime Day deals. If you don't at least do the 20%, you're going to get filtered out when someone does that.
Did you have anyone that did more?
We did have a couple that did 25%. I don't think we had any that did more than that.
Do you think that was impactful at all? Like, I guess that's a very small percentage. You probably didn't see lift from that 5%. Like, what do you? I'm just always curious. Like, because I was following Brett, our coworker who reviews things on TikTok. And he was sharing some like insane, like I think it was like a Roomba, not a Roomba, but some vacuum that you could get. It was like 90% off or something crazy. Like which I don't know why people do that necessarily, but you didn't see a huge lift between 20 and 25.
Not really. We did see some of our competition on some products running 30, 35% off. It's really difficult to make that work, and it's only really feasible for a brand where you're really just driving customer acquisition and you know they're going to be repeat buyers, which is difficult on Amazon because you don't really have a strong way to follow up with the customers because it's an Amazon customer. They're not your customers. They make clear all the time. But if you do have a product that you're confident they will repeat purchase, then maybe you do that 30, 35% off to really incentivize just the first time customer acquisition, and you use it like that. But that's the only way I see it working, because just due to you're going to be paying Amazon roughly 15% in a fee, you have your shipping costs, and you have to provide free shipping basically. With your cost of goods, if you're doing 30, 35% off, that's all of your profit. So usually there's no margin left over if you're at that level.
And when you can 8x your revenue using other tactics, then you don't have to lean as heavy on the discount.
Definitely. It seems like there's diminishing returns there. After you have that Prime badge, you're filtered in when people are searching for Prime deals. You're definitely getting a little bit less bang for your buck if you push any further with your discount.
So what does because the big part of what we talk about Amazon is how we kind of force the issue with ads, with Amazon ads, not just waiting for the flow to come. Like should we start on what works best on the listings leading up to it and then move into ads maybe? Like what worked best regarding listings and the actual Amazon presences, but beyond the ads?
A lot of it comes down to the discount is a huge part of it. On certain brands, especially if you're running discounts that are complicated, and what I mean by that, like maybe you're doing a tiered promo or you're doing selection of your catalog is a certain percentage off. Using imagery, typically updating the second image to highlight what's going on there, usually makes a lot of sense, as well as really keeping track of those discounts and deals. We say 20% off like you just run a sale price. It's not exactly how that ends up going. You have deals that you have to schedule out months in advance. Like right now, for example, there is a deadline coming up on the 11th of August for the Prime Fall event deals. There'll be another one for Black Friday that will probably hit at the end of September-ish. And if you don't have them scheduled in by then, you miss out on certain special deal pages. You can still schedule what's called a Prime exclusive discount up until then, but you do get some extra reach for these different deals. But those deals are also putting you a little bit at Amazon's mercy of when they're timed. Some of them aren't even within the window of Prime Day. They'll be Prime Week, which is not the same thing. So in a lot of cases, you need to watch those deals and make sure that they are actually all live. That's a huge part of what we do actually on the first day of Prime Day, is going through the whole catalog of every client, making sure that all the deals we had scheduled are actually going live, because a lot of things can happen where maybe that brand ran a sale a month ago and now the reference price that Amazon has is actually a little bit lower. So your 20% off discount doesn't count and you have to go a little bit lower day of to make sure you get that badge. So a big part of it is actually just confirming that all your discounts and deals are showing the way you intended, because there is a lot of intricacy there to make sure that that's working right.
Very cool. And then onto the ad side, what worked well with Amazon ads this Prime Day?
Big thing was we updated our budgets the night before, or very early day of, to try to get the algorithm to recognize that we were open to spending, that our campaigns had room to spend, and that we wanted to spend. So we would increase those by whatever amount we thought our campaigns would want to spend on Prime Day 1. That was between 2 to 5 times usually, but I think in almost every case we undershot all of those, and we ended up having to re-up those budgets further and further throughout the day. But that did seem to have a positive effect for sure. It's really hard to attribute that one though, because it's all behind the scenes algorithm stuff.
Yeah, I wonder for next year with planning if there's a difference between inching them up through the day and just being like the night of being a little bit more sure that they're going to be 8x or whatever, right?
Yeah, and on top of that, we also day before, there's a lot of in most accounts and a lot of accounts, your top spending campaigns are typically a pretty large share of your overall spend within a couple campaigns, and a lot of time within even a few keywords. So you get a really good grasp of how much you typically spend on those keywords in a normal day, what your typical cost per click is on those keywords, what your typical ROAS is on a typical day. So what a lot of what we did in quite a few of our brands day before is increase the bid on that keyword to match where we think the conversion rate is going to go. Because if we think the Prime Day conversion rate is going to be double a typical day, well, then we can afford to spend not double because we're going to be running a discount, but somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 50 to 60% more for that click. For that keyword than we normally do. So making a lot of those bid increases the day before or the night before at least means that as soon as midnight hits on Prime Day and that deal goes live, your ad is showing as it should be, and a competitor might not update their bids to start to reflect the data until halfway through the first day. And so you've gotten 12 hours of a huge advantage because you made those bid changes the night before. The day before, you might overshoot it. I think in a lot of cases we probably did overshoot those bids, but I'd rather overshoot it and take way larger advantage of that traffic and that huge conversion rate than to undershoot it and miss out on likely tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue.
And when the data is coming in so quickly on Prime Day, as long as the campaign manager is reporting data properly, you get the data back pretty quickly, and you can make some adjustments on the fly morning of or after you start to see whether or not you're getting too much reach or spending too much there. So
It might be worse overshooting in the beginning because Amazon's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, right? So if you're bidding and you're getting that momentum, you're getting the sales, you're getting conversions early on, really showing aggressively, then it might make it it gives you that momentum kind of going into it. What did we see in terms of the conversion percentage lift on Prime Day versus a regular day? What can you say about that?
I think most brands saw roughly a doubling. It's very dependent on the brand for sure, but a couple that we highlighted at the top there saw roughly a doubling to their prospecting conversion rate, which of course is massive.
And what does ROAS look like on a platform on Amazon on the day of?
it can vary pretty greatly depending on how aggressive your strategy is. So if you are really trying to take advantage of Prime Day to push for ranking on your top keywords, you may be sacrificing extra efficiency you could have had to push for additional revenue and additional sales on those keywords. But if you're running a similar strategy to what you run on an average day, you're going to see, similar to what Clifford said for the last one, it does vary greatly depending on the product being sold. But you can see upwards of double to even quadruple your average efficiency. It varies quite a bit, though, depending on the product.
I think across the board, our goal on Prime Day is typically to maintain efficiency, but just at a way higher revenue. And most cases we did that, but to be fair, we did that because the second day, I think we pulled back a lot on a lot of brands. First day, a lot of these tactics that we mentioned, we went hard on budgets increases, bid increases, the discount. Like, we wanted to make sure that if the traffic's there, we are taking advantage of it. And we very much did. But what that meant is at the end of the first day and at the beginning of the second day, we're reassessing on day one. We're like, okay, in some of these cases, because of the discount, our efficiency ended up a little bit worse than we need to be. This will hurt us for the month. And so the second day on a lot of brands, we did pull back quite a bit on spend. However, a lot of the clicks that we gained in that first day did pay off really nicely in the second day. So a lot of those brands, their second day were way more efficient than the first one, and it ended up balancing out pretty nicely to end up efficiency roughly in the same place as we'd normally see.
While even spending less on that second day. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Your efficiency going up, the residual sales coming in. Super cool. What? Oh, I wanted to ask. Have you seen any residual benefits from these companies that did extremely well on Prime Day in terms of their ranking organically after the fact?
So on one of the brands, I've seen that our keyword rankings, we already were in about the top 1 to 5 spots for our top 5 keywords. We've maintained roughly that zone, but our average daily revenue has been climbing relatively steadily. So about 10% since then, at least.
Interesting. You're seeing the same, Clifford? Or it's case by case, I imagine.
To a point. Unfortunately, in a lot of in a lot of our brands' cases, Prime Day was too good, and we oversold inventory a little bit. Not oversold, but we sold through probably more inventory than we would have liked to, meaning that we left not enough runway afterwards. So in those cases, not so much. But in a lot of cases where we did run the strongest offers, a lot of them are subscription reliant brands. Or reliant is a strong word, but subscription heavy brands. So in those cases, we saw huge subscriber lifts, and those should continue to pay off for months. So even outside of the keyword ranking lifts that we saw, which we did, but they dip back pretty quickly if you don't maintain a lot of that volume. But for the subscription and repeat purchase side seems to be paying off really nicely on a lot of the brands that drove some pretty heavy subscription lift on the day.
Cool. So we talked about the raising your bid to match the expected conversion rate list. What else? I've got a note here about expanding your audience, essentially, in terms of keywords, broader matching your keywords.
So we actually saw that during Prime Day, with the increased traffic, the more auto type campaigns, so anything that didn't have very specific targets, like an exact match keyword, that was phrase matching, that was ASIN sponsored product targets on the keyword results, so not showing up on product pages, showing up in top of search or rest of search. And those campaigns were actually seeing much better ROAS than usual and a lot more spend actually funneling into them without major bid changes in some cases as well. So similar bid to pre-Prime Day, but a lot more impressions and a lot more high efficiency sales.
Very cool. I also have a note here about search your terms. What's meant by that?
Yeah, that's in large part making sure, similarly on the deal front, making sure that your ads are showing the way you want them to be showing. Because on the day, you have a lot larger shifts in your competition's budgets and bids than you'd normally have on a regular day. So ads that you might normally have the top of search placement for, you have had it for the last couple months, suddenly on Prime Day you might lose that, and that could be a huge deal depending on the keywords that those are landing to. So in addition to making sure your deals are live, a lot of what we'll end up doing is just searching our words, just going on Amazon like a customer, search the words, and whether it's in a incognito window or using a proxy or some way to try and replicate a customer experience, make sure that your ads are showing the places you think they should be showing. A lot of the cases, campaign managers' data is delayed enough that you can't be super sure it's working until hours later. So just doing those searches and doing them quite a few times throughout the couple of days of Prime Day to ensure that nothing changes there. We did see second day, morning, Prime Day, huge increases in cost per clicks across a lot of brands. So it did seem that a lot of our competition didn't increase things enough day one, but day two, they were increasing massively, which is another big part of the reason we pulled back a little on day two is cost per click started to get out of hand. So it would have tanked efficiency way too bad. So we took advantage of the clicks we gained on day one, a lot of the quick movement we did on day one, and day two, we had to pull back.
Early bird gets the worm, it sounds like.
100%. And I mean, as a Prime Day shopper, I'm sure most people are like me. I assume everyone's like me, of course.
Of course.
I am, of course, the ideal shopper. I look at midnight. It's midnight, day one, Prime Day. What are the deals? People already have a cart lined up. They're ready to go. Like they have a wish list ready, and they're hitting a lot of those deals right at midnight on the first day, if not the morning of the first day for sure. You're losing a lot if the majority of your spend is coming in the end of the first day or the beginning of the second day. That is not a great time. Beginning of first day and very end of the second day are what really hit.
Very cool. So we've talked a lot about the wins and things that worked really well. It's funny. I've got this note here. We've got wins, losses, hits, misses, fails, mistakes. It sounds like there's a lot more wins than there were the negatives. But what were some of the negatives, and then what did we learn about them?
Quite a few brands going into Prime Day didn't have sufficient inventory, or their inventory situation wasn't fully sorted out, and so some brands ended up missing out on the potential sales lift that they could have had. There's quite a few that came to mind. Inventory issues on their back end there. But staying stocked going into Prime Day is such an important, especially in getting way ahead of it too, because the queues fill up, receiving times get majorly extended. We were seeing some products taking an entire month to be received when normally it takes a couple weeks after they arrive. So really getting ahead of the events like Prime Day, like well ahead of at least a month ahead, is really important.
And so you can avoid the situation that Clifford mentioned earlier, where you sell so much on Prime Day that you're not able to take advantage of maybe even your regular sales flow as much after Prime Day. Anything else to add there, Clifford, in terms of L's that you saw on the accounts?
Oh, there are many L's. We don't, we talk about the W's, keep the L's quiet. No, for the most part, Prime Day did end up very strong across the board. There was definitely things where deals didn't go live and it wasn't noticed right away, and it hurt sales for sure. And there were inventory issues, buy box issues, meaning that some outside source, whether it's a third-party seller or a distributor or something else, has a lower price than you on the day, and so your deal doesn't go live because your reference price is lower, and you don't notice that because it looks like it went live on the back end, but it didn't actually on the consumer-facing side. Another one is just lack of promos in general. I think that there are a lot of clients where a lot of brands, a lot of clients that look at Prime Day and like, well, if we take 20%, our margins are too rough and it's not worth it. But in almost every case, we find that the margin hit is made up for by either the revenue increase on the day or day after, or the lasting effects that we get from both repeat purchases or, like we mentioned, keyword rankings and a lot of the other things that come from the increases you get on Prime Day. As you said, Eric, you nailed it, that Amazon really does favor products that are doing well, whether that's click-through rate or conversion rate. It really is a snowball. So if that snowball starts rolling and it happens to be on Prime Day, then you can really extend out those effects by pushing advertising, by continuing to run other promos, by like any other means you might have, other levers you can pull after Prime Day to continue that momentum. And if you don't run those Prime Day promos, you don't get that momentum in the first place.
Very cool. And you mentioned this is all hyper relevant, even more relevant now because there's a Prime Day in the fall. That's not even, is that 6 months apart, or is that, I'm just trying to even think, is it like how many Prime Days are we going to have?
I think it was October.
Okay,
last
October,
year
that makes sense.
Last year was October, and it's a good chance they'll do it October again because there's not a ton of time there because they got Black Friday right around the corner too.
I love it. We need one in the spring. Let's go quarterly Prime Days. Just rev up this machine. That's what. So I think there's a lot here for people to take away. Also, what did you guys get? Did you guys get anything? Did you make any Prime Day purchases? Clifford, you were there at midnight. You got some good ones.
I bought a lot of stuff on Prime Day. I have since returned almost all of the things that I bought on Prime Day. So very impulsive purchases day of. Very sad boxing up and sending back a little bit after, where I'm like, I don't need any of this. So I had a great Prime Day. It was very exciting. I got really swept up in it. And then my wife saw all the stuff that I ordered in boxes sitting in the living room. She's like, we don't need all of this stuff. So yeah.
Prime Day fever, they call that. They call that Prime Day fever. Takai, how about you? I know you're traveling right now. So did you buy anything?
I almost did, but I didn't want to put my parents or grandma through the grief of having to sit on those boxes for a few months, so I held off.
I also did not buy anything at my eye. I'm always keeping my eye on that 4-inch by 4-inch cube of tungsten that weighs over 40 pounds.
That didn't go 20% off on Prime Day?
There was no Prime Day deal on solid tungsten that weighs a surprising amount, which is what I'm all about, if you didn't know. So if Big Tungsten is listening out there and you want to provide me some branding for the pod, I will gladly include it and always talk about how heavy it is. Yeah, that's all I got for today, guys. I think this was, we'll have to revisit. We'll see you again in the fall or before then as we chat Amazon stuff. It was elucidating as usual.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilot House's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.